This is Lady Anne, owner of KPNL Radio and hostess of the Caravan Library of Lore, and I support Tessa. As an experiencer myself, I have filed my own reports with them, and the professionalism and heart they have shown my case goes above and beyond. If you have had an experience, I cannot recommend Tessa enough.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston Zedmore from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Ryan Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. But you can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. Good luck, have fun, and keep it positive.
Good evening. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. TESA is a UFO, paranormal, and paracryptid investigation association. We investigate everything belonging to the global phenomenon linked to highly strange and unexplained experiences. We also connect experiencers with other experiencers, creating a safe, positive environment to engage and discuss this phenomenon without judgment, criticism, or retribution. From the land of the white rolling sands, on the southeasterly tip of Georgian Bay, to all of you listening around the world, as we simulcast live on KPNL Radio, we salute you. If you want to go back and listen to our previous episodes, go to youtube.com/the Experiencer Support Association. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring that bell to be instantly notified when we are live, not only for these episodes, but every single element Tessa has to offer. On our website, tessacan.org, we have something for everyone. We have support for experiencers, data for independent researchers, and places to advertise for professional partners. Hello, today is Thursday, October 28th, 2021, and I, Ryan Stacy, am your host this evening. I'm a licensed private investigator, a citizen journalist, and the Director of Investigations for the Experiencer Support Association. Welcome to the channel, and thank you for joining us this evening. Remember to super chat, just click the $ next to your name in the comment box, and remember that all the donations go back into the mission. If you're catching this on the replay, please consider becoming a member and unlock bonus content, including behind the scenes and extended footage on new project developments and investigations. We actually have a blooper reel in development right now. And I am having a hard time editing it because it's really funny. So just remember, just click the big blue button that says join. Our guest tonight, season 3, episode 34, is Daniel Rekshan. Daniel is a citizen science researcher on dreams and extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional contact experiences. He holds a Master's of Arts in East-West Psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies. He also has a certificate in depth hypnosis and a certificate in beyond quantum healing. You can connect with his citizen science work by going to www.exometaverse.org. You can find his dream practices at www.dreamwellbewell.com and his work with hypnosis through www.cosmicdreamhypnosis.com. A lot of positive things there. So, Daniel, put on your tinfoil hat. How are you doing today? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
So disclaimer, we have met before, we have talked before, so I do know Daniel a little bit, but not as much as as we're going to get into. So we have some loaded questions prepared in advance. But before we do that, we got to get into the icebreaker from Tim, the Demon Guy Morrison, which is see you there in the chat. So we'll be right back. 1 sec. All right. So for those of you who are seeing the icebreaker for the first time, the way it works is Tim, the Demon Guy, gives me a question, and I will ask it. I'm going to open it live, and we're just going to answer it, and then we'll continue with the show. We've got surprises for us. All right. Today's question is, it's got two questions. Demon Guy gives you a 2-for-1. Okay. What is the scariest Halloween costume you have ever seen? And what is the scariest Halloween costume you have ever worn?
Scariest Halloween costume I've ever seen. I'm trying to remember back. The first image that comes to mind is actually those like childhood haunted houses you walk through, and they jump out, and there was a murder scene going on, like dismemberment sort of thing. Like someone was in. I knew it was fake, but that actually was terrifying to me.
Okay. What about what you've worn?
I have not actually tended towards wearing scary costumes so much in Halloween. There was one Halloween I did work on an art print of the devil image with the like goats. The goat had this like behemoth or whatever. Yeah. I worked with that one one Halloween, and that was fairly scary to me. Okay. But that was sort of working with the fear of imagery.
So for me, and then I'm just gonna curse Tim for it because he is a loaded question for me, and I guess he just wants me to admit it live on television, not live on the podcast. But the scariest costume I've ever seen would be of a clown. I do not like clowns. I hate clowns. I don't want them to be anywhere near me. And yes, I'm saying that. And what is the scariest costume I've ever worn? I don't know. I don't think I've really. I haven't really dressed up as anything too. Like last year, I dressed up as a Ghostbuster surprise. But that's about it. So thanks, Tim. Try not to make it so personal next time. All right. So let's start with as I say, why are you the way that you are? How did you get here? Where did this all start?
Thank you. Yeah, I often think about last December actually when I said a prayer to be of service to others in alignment with destiny, mission, and desire. My desire in that case was to work with extra-dimensional contact phenomena through hypnosis and dream work. And I got there after studying psychology, getting these certificates in hypnosis, being fascinated by the subject, primarily because of my own experiences as a child with E.T., through dreams, that sort of thing, and really a sort of these lifelong phenomena that occurred, and yet part of me was pushing them away. I explored them through art a lot. But last year, I went ahead and got all these the psychology background, the hypnosis stuff, because I knew I wanted to work with ET contact, but I didn't have enough guts or coherence to go, you know what, this is it. So I ended up working a lot with flirting with going into web development, then out of it to pursue art and things like that. And I finally got to a point where I said, you know what, it's silly to pretend I want to do anything else besides work in the field of ET contact through dreams hypnosis, and the citizen science actually was part of it. So That was last December. I made that decision, and since then, got connected with an emerging nonprofit, the Exo Metaverse. We were doing citizen science, and that's why I'm here, because Ryan and I met through that context of collaborating on reporting systems. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So I made a couple notes there too. So December, December is an interesting month for me. December is the month in which I guess contact was made, in a sense, to create Tessa. So Tessa's birthday is in December. I've made decisions in December. It could be the year end. It could be, was it like any New Year's resolution kind of talk going on, or did you have some like metaphysical like connection that was just like, you got to do this?
It was sort of like, you got to do this. I ended up working. So I had this pattern. I received 8 years ago or whatever. I received sort of downloads right through this whole bizarre situation that it first expressed itself through art, but then expressed itself through a vision of a dream database, citizen science platform. So I had been working on that for like years, really off and on, and going into professional work as a web developer, and then back going, you know what, I'm going to do art, hypnosis, and focus on the citizen science thing, but not all the way. I never fully jumped in, let's say. So then this last December, I was in the last iteration of that process and I was working for a venture-funded startup. It was a very crystallized experience. It was so obvious to me that I would not be happy there, and it was like so obvious to me that these patterns were expressing themselves yet again. And if you've ever had a kind of pattern that is surrounding a kind of psychological complex, like you just can't get through it. You're like, not again, not this person again, right? Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to solve that for myself here and now, and that was really it. Yeah,
cool. That's good. So tell me about this, if you don't mind, this ET that you saw as a child. What did it look like?
Yeah, so it wasn't necessarily an ET I saw. I still don't have physical 3D conscious memory, as you might say. What I do have is memories of being 4 years old and seeing the thing that I track memories about memories, and like the experience and what I talked about. So for example, when I was 4 years old, I was terrified of the closet, and there's these sort of beings that I was scared of, vampires that came through, and they were bald with like little heads, and it was like classic gray imagery interpreted as
these came out of the closet.
Top of the closet. And I don't actually, I remember pulling the blanket above my head, looking up, being scared of it, thinking if I could just shut the door. And at the time, I didn't think of it as a child so much, or wasn't reflective about it. You tell your parents, you're like, oh, well, these are nightmares, these are fears, that sort of thing.
Did the vampire have like a cloak or a robe or anything on? Any clothing?
None that I remember. And again, the memories I'm accessing are sort of imaginal at this point, right? So okay. They sort of...
There's this trend in the research that I've done so far in the last 2 years of closets being seem to be the location of where entities are being seen, and there's these cloaks. That's why I was asking that, because you mentioned some buzzwords there, and I was like, it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay.
Yeah, the next closest memory I have around that time, I have experience of like 4 years old, 14, and then 19 that I've really sort of tracked around. Primarily, initially as symptoms of what might look like alien abduction. When I was 15, I became obsessed basically, and like went through. There's checklists like, do you dream of UFOs? Do you think about ETs? Do you suspect you were like all these questions? So I use those to explore these memories, these experiences, and the one I'm speaking about, when I was 4, I remember looking out of my bed into the front yard of my house, and I noticed something coming up towards it, And I remember looking at it and there's being a sort of shimmery quality to it, and going like, what is that? What is that? And it shifting and like not really coming into coherence until I go, you know what? It's Easter time. That
Mhm.
must be the Easter bunny. And then there was all of a sudden this sort of like shifting to like, yeah, that's definitely the Easter bunny. My mind was like, yes, that's the Easter bunny. And so all of a sudden that image came forward. And I told everyone I saw the Easter bunny. I since then I spoke to my like family about it. And I'm like, do you remember I was talking about the Easter bunny? My brother, actually, a twin brother, who's been helpful in figuring out these memories, is like, he says like, yeah, I remember you talked about it. We thought it, you were like, thought it was so funny that you made that up and were so insistent, right? So it's like it
Mhm.
was out of character for me to make it up, and also out of character for me to be.
So that was you rationally trying to understand what you may have seen.
Yes.
So is there any belief behind that? Do you believe that it's a dream, or do you believe it was real, like an actual dimension or something interdimension, I suppose?
Yeah, right now my hypothesis, right? Like these are all hypotheses. My intuition around that is yes, indeed, it was a extraterrestrial or extra dimensional being approaching the house to have some sort of contact. Same thing with the vampires from the closet, which in since then I've done regression work and like dream work around that, and have found much more peace around. I have peace around that sort of thing. I'm not scared of them like vampires or evil grays coming to
Now,
the
yeah, because well, these are labels too that the archetypes that we apply. So
yeah.
the vampire, I mean, I guess did it have fangs? I suppose. Then, like, what would be the identifier for you to call it a vampire?
Yeah, and so that only comes about because of the Count on Sesame Street. He was
Okay.
the close. He was the only pale thing that had the face
Yeah.
shape that I saw actually, and
That's
so
interesting. I had someone describe what looked like Grover from the Sesame Street, and it was the only thing I could find that like made sense to what they were describing. But I was like, it couldn't be, it couldn't be. I guess it's not a Muppet; it's something different, right? A puppet, And but the thing is, when I did some research and I go to how old they were, and it turns out that Sesame Street started that year or a year prior to that, and it was like kind of like around the time that Grover debuted on television. So the circumstantial evidence kind of showed, that maybe he saw that creature for the first time and no one's ever seen it, and then it just scared the hell out of him, and then he had nightmares.
yeah.
Again, like we don't know. I wasn't there, but so I just find it. I just thought I'd comment on that because a lot of the stuff when we're kids, we go back to the clowns. The reason why I don't like clowns is that something happened to me when I was a kid, and I still don't like it. I don't dream about clowns today. When a clown ever shows up, I'm telling you, Tim, I will knock you on your ass if you do anything. Anyways, so yeah, so okay, cool. Then what happened?
Then I don't actually remember any major other contact phenomena until I was 14 or so. I suspect there was something. There was I was a sensitive kid, that sort of thing. When I was 14, I don't actually have any specific memories, but that's when the obsession started. So that's where that I like literally I built my first website about ETs. I scoured the internet. I'm still doing that sort of stuff, scouring the internet and bringing it together. So
Dangerous game. That's a
yeah,
thing.
yeah, I had it up on like GeoCities, and so I studied a lot of that. I had a large and so I kept looking at those alien abduction symptomologies and being like, something must have happened. And I remember just going like, something must have happened. I know something happened. Something happened. Something happened. I remember being in the like bathroom of my house and looking in the mirror. And after having examined my whole body for marks, actually, I was like, I need evidence. I need evidence that something has happened to me because I know something happened. And I got to the point where it's like, there's absolutely no evidence, physically or otherwise, that I can see. And so I'm going to set it out of my head and not consider myself someone who has had those experiences. I'm just interested, something like that. Yeah.
Well, you could be. Depends on how we look at it. I mean, we can't. We got to see what's in the mind, right? How do we document? Uh, how do we document it that way? So it depends on what you're trying to do and your goals. So what I'm hearing, and this is fascinating, is like you're self-diagnosing in a sense in a phenomenon that is a pseudo phenomenon, a pseudoscience. That now you keep mentioning these symptoms and these categories or these markers. Where are you getting this list that tells you that you may or may not be a contactee? And from that list, how do you know that that list is a credible list of markers to use?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I think where I got that must have been the internet or the public library, right? Like my high school library. In terms of whether or not it's credible, at that time, it's just I was 14. I like didn't have 15, whatever. I didn't have enough sophistication to look into that. I was like, these are experts. Clearly, they know what they're talking about.
Oh yeah, there's been studies for many years, and that's how we get the information, because they
Yeah.
study and they do the science, and then they create these categories and then and these markers. And for you, finding that after the fact, there's validation there because you didn't write it, you just found it, and then you started to resonate with it. It started to make sense. A lot of the a couple of weeks ago we were talking about star children or star seeds. There's a lot of self-help kind of surveys and stuff that you can do to kind of identify yourself in that sense. But it's along the whole lines of like, do you feel like you don't belong here? Do you feel like you should be on another planet, or do you feel like you're from this and all these other things? But like with today's like push for answers and exploring space and stuff like that, do you think any of that is subject to influence with these if you were to do that survey today?
Like if I were to do that survey today and like look at it and think about it, if I were to do that survey, I actually, in terms of talking to people and looking at my own life, I believe firmly in the ET presence here. I believe in starseeds. I believe in all of these things. And I actually do believe that the phenomena, the psychic phenomena, is more relevant than the objective evidential phenomena. And so that's like an interesting paradox to be in doing citizen science, because I'm like, consciousness primary, right? The psychic stuff, right? So I've been picking up on, it's like, was this real? Was this not? Where's the evidence for these experiences? And it's like I said, it's like there's no evidence for any of my experiences as.
There is evidence. It's a type of evidence. So what you have is testimonial evidence. And when you get that from another person, that is testimonial evidence. If you hear from another person about another person who was abducted, that's hearsay, but it's still a form of evidence. So there's levels of evidence. So you do have evidence. It's just a matter of whether or not that piece of evidence is substantial enough to prove a hypothesis. So what hypothesis, what are you trying to prove for yourself? If you're trying to prove that you have contact, if you have this evidence, why don't you use that? Why don't you believe that evidence and just be?
Exactly. So that's what I was looking for when I was a teenager. And that's where I got to the point where it's like, I don't actually have the evidence to prove that I was physically abducted. So I had this mental image that ETs were like these little gray beings, and they lived in flying saucers, and they flew and beamed you up and did things to you physically. They took your body physically. That's the evidence I was looking for. And it turns out there's no evidence in my life for that level of interaction, except for, the testimony. My father saw a UFO. He talked about it to everyone, till everyone said, hey, watch out. You'll lose your law career on this. So don't do that. Right. So chill it out. Don't share this information, that sort of thing. But now my hypothesis is actually that the ED phenomena, that contact phenomena, reveals a deeper reality that we experience through things like dreams, Again, hypnosis, that sort of thing, gives us access to it, the
So-
channeled realms, whatever.
We're not physically going. That's why there's no evidence, but we're mentally going, or they're mentally coming.
Well, a little bit of everything, actually. That's the thing. That's where I stand is like, I actually, as a hypnosis practitioner, I go, I don't know. I'm not going to make those judgments. I go, everything that's possible that can happen is happening in terms of that.
So let's dive into the citizen science. So we've mentioned that word several times. I resonate with the term citizen journalist, and the reason why I use citizen journalist is simply because I did not go to school for journalism. I do not have the credentials that would allow me to work for media or press. However, being a private investigator, I possess the tools and that a journalist has, and I'm able to do all those things. But because I don't have that degree, it limits my, I guess, where I can play. So in terms of citizen science, how similar is that? I mean, don't say, but explain and how that relates to what you're doing and any struggles with that.
Yeah, so the citizen science is, any effort of science that is put forward by citizens is oftentimes is defined as a collaboration by professional scientists and citizens. And, examples of that are like bird counting. Like bird scientists will ask citizens to, hey, count the birds in your neighborhood. Same thing with a Galaxy Zoo project. The Hubble Space Telescope had a bunch of photos of galaxies, and the citizens classified this. In this case, citizen science, particularly with the UFO ET contact field, I think is immensely important because I believe actually that the professional scientists and the community of academia is institutionally, let's say, slowing down or adding friction to the study of these things, and I see that through a variety of means, particularly systematic ridicule of experiencers and like it's not possible, that sort of thing. The actually systematic discounting of testimony, and we see this in like dreams too. Is people go like, oh, it was just a dream. Like that's that sort of.
Yeah, but that's an all statement. Like like you can't say that it's just a dream unless you know it's a dream. So even the academics who are smarter than us, say silly things that don't even make sense.
Yeah. So so in terms of the citizen science, and like I see a lot of potential in that is bringing the capacities to measure, to report, to come to conclusions about these things through the work of other people. And one of the most compelling things for me is looking out to see how many, just the raw numbers of how many people are resonating with these fields. So you can get to that information at like exometaverse.org. We have counts going on about the social media following of people who talk about these things. But even more, I mean, one of my own personal experiences was like when I was 19 or 20 trying to figure this stuff out, was going on the internet, going through all the bazillion forums there were. And then I started counting like how many there are, right? Like, what are these experiences people are sharing on the internet because they find it meaningful, that sort of thing. And so really looking to the citizens as a means of, and that's just a term for everyday person who is engaged in this, really. Is like it's that they've got a vested interest in understanding this. They have the testimony, and they might not even there's no systematic setup to make them fail in this study, basically. And so I see this as important.
So how does one citizen, like in that aspect, journalism or science, or both, get the academic to accept the research and the science or the facts from the citizen? How do we get them to accept that in their work and present it without saying you didn't do that, and or without ripping it apart, or throwing it out simply because you didn't achieve or click or check enough boxes to earn the status in which they claim to be at this time. How do you think?
Yeah, I would actually propose we throw out those academics. It's just like straight up. I mean,
Grab your pitchforks. Let's go.
Well, we can use the gentle force of time in society in terms of how science unfolds is often similar to this. Thomas Kuhn in his famous the structure of scientific revolutions is just he says there's always going to be people that believe in the old theories, and oftentimes science progresses when those people die. And I'm not proposing anything nefarious here. I'm just saying let's wait and work with the people who will listen.
I can relate to that. To put it in simple terms, I'm just continuing where Hynek and John Keel had left off when they died. I'm doing the same thing they did, but I don't have those. I'm using their work, I'm using their tools, I'm using their methods, but because I'm not them or I didn't achieve that way of life, it's taboo.
Yep.
So, okay, yeah, I would love to get rid of the academics, but we need them. So because they control, they're in the world, they're the message, they're the medium. It's kind of book smarts versus street smarts, and some street smart people are a lot smarter than the book smart people, depending on when you need it. So aces in places. You'll also get informants in the police world or investigative world. You get someone who's on the inside who understands those things. So in this newly opened realm of this phenomenon, and now coming out in the public with UFOs and things like that, do you think it would ever be possible in our lifetime for them to scoop up a citizen like ourselves to help them figure out what's going on when they have a specific type of standards and regulations that they need to follow, because we're thinking outside the box?
Yeah, I actually, what I see in the future is these phenomena are really increasing in terms of at least the reporting on it and the ability to do experiments through such things as CE5, through if you can invoke these phenomena and they happen, and you can measure them and record them. So at a certain point, that the weight of that evidence, right, and testimony of everyone who's sharing this, your work included, will shift the public perception, I believe, enough that I think there is a mechanism in terms of how people are ready to receive this information and contact.
The audience that's watching us, the cultures, the circles that we're in, we all get it. We're all in that boat, but it's the disclosure that we want to get. So they're aware of us, they don't use us, but they also can, I don't know, for me, I feel like we're the experiment. Maybe they do know and they want us to figure it out, and then that way, if it doesn't work because we don't have all this stuff, they can use that to say in case we took it too far, all of a sudden we're crackpots, or all of a sudden we're diagnosed with a mental illness that doesn't exist, and because of that we're not credible. We're kind of we're pushing an envelope here, and without any protection, without any boundaries, without knowing the boundaries, mind you. So how do you sleep at night? How do you you're not worried that you might just unlock the code and be in possession of the answers?
Oh, I sometimes sleep well at night. Last night we had an interesting experience at 1:44. My wife woke up and was like the printer turned on, and then she heard someone walk up the steps or whatever, and I was like, "There's no one else is here." I wasn't scared, you can sense those things, but I did check the house. So I sleep that way sometimes. And we also experience a lot of, the more I get into it, actually, the more I study it, the more active that sort of dream communication and that nighttime sort of contact experience unfolds. In terms of, you had a different kind of, how do you sleep at night, actually, edge to that question. And
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, wouldn't you be concerned if we knew the answers that the government might also have, but they're just not divulging it? I mean, do they where are you on that fence? Do they know and they're not telling us, and we're figuring out we're on the same lines, or do they just not know? They don't have time to look into it, and then people like us are solving it, and yet they're just not interested in it. So where do you think the government really is in terms of the phenomenon?
I think there are many different aspects of what entities associated with what we call the government. I think the everyday person in the bureaucracies have no idea what's going on. I think they're just like us, just like other people. We don't know. They would be very happy for us to figure this out. I think there are other elements within the military-industrial complex that have had obvious agendas, right? That come forward that's where the smear campaigns come, or that's where the rails of science are defined is by these entities that we don't really know who they are, right? They're kind of shadowy. They're the source of all the conspiracy theories, right? And they may or may not want us to be doing this work. However, in terms of my ever since I got my certificate in hypnosis and stuff like that, I've been kind of doing that sort of run at the end of a cliff sort of thing, is now the time, and I would sense out and I'd be afraid. It's oh my God, if I start working with hypnosis and figuring out missing time, will the men in black come and get me or whatever? And so I had to work through all those fears recently, and energetically I opened myself up to look at the world, and I think it's changed actually energetically. I don't think those aspects of those military industrial complex have as much power as we once believed they did.
Well, there's a lot of missing information. A lot of us are speculating. There's a lot of reasons why we don't trust the government. There's a lot of reasons why we should trust the government. There's a lot of, I mean, I like what you said, that maybe they just don't know because they're human too. Maybe it just is it's normal, and we just can't. We don't know till we die. It just might be that simple. And what we tap into, where we go to in a dream state consciousness, we don't know exactly who or what or where we're connecting to. It just is. It's just so complex. So let's get into hypnosis, because I got a question here from one of our members, Chantel. She says, "What is the difference between deep guided meditation and hypnosis in terms of brain activity?"
Okay, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
I actually am not a neuroscientist, nor do I have a
citizen neuroscientist.
That's what?
Can you be a citizen neuroscientist?
Well, actually, there's there's the EEG bands and things like that can measure it. So in terms of the activity, in terms of deep guided meditation and hypnosis, even from a level of practice, it's kind of similar. And it really, speaking about hypnosis, that is the term that needs a lot of disambiguation, because there is a sense of someone leading an experience, right? You can do self-hypnosis. A lot of people say everything is self-hypnosis. Same thing with guided meditation. In terms of my actual practice, the words hypnosis and deep guided meditation are more or less synonymous. So it depends on the audience I'm speaking to as to what we're doing. I hope that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good. I'm just trying to think how I would answer that too. We got to study the brain. I mean, I'm sure there's studies on both sides, and that's for the maybe we need the academics after all, or something like that. Okay, all right. So let's get into. Well, you want to talk about dreams. So dreams is kind of like your take home. This is where you're focused. This is where you're really studying. Talk about your work. How are you studying this? What how does it work?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by dreams. That's so that and a lot of my contact in my teenage years came from dreams. I had very real, and we would call them hyper real experiences, right? Like they're like you go to, you break out of this world, and there are like these beings that are like super super intense, and they're like, and they're like, this is the nature of reality or whatever, and then they're like, go back to your body, like that kind of thing unfolding, or like
You've seen that? That's happened to you?
yeah, I
Okay.
just, like went to the foundations of space and time. That's how I did a lot of my philosophy in undergrad. I went back to the memory of the foundations of space and time. It was fairly intense, and it's I drew pictures of it. There's a lot of like oscillations and stuff like that, and kaleidoscopic colors, and these sort of vast beings. That said, so those sorts of experiences in my life have led up to an interest in dreams. So one of the most potent experiences I had in dreams was something like an out-of-body experience where I saw my grandfather pass over to the other side, actually, and it was unexpected. I had no idea. I was like writing down the experience. My mom called. I was like, oh, that makes sense. So there was that was a moment where I said, aha, there's something objective that happened here, which is my grandfather died. Subjectively, I had the dreamlike experience of being guided by these archetypal kind of almost Egyptian deity-like beings to see this spirit pass over to the other side, simultaneously with my grandfather actually dying, right? Like, so that synchronicity is impossible to ignore. And I go, oh, something real is here. I spent years trying to figure that out, like how to work with that, how to encourage dreams. And so the way I work with dreams now is like threefold, actually. One is through direct with hypnosis. We do a lot of dream work whenever I work with someone. I ask them about their dreams. We look at life as a dream, and that's a really important kind of like, well, life is a dream in a sense. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is through the citizen science work of bringing together dreams and doing quantitative analysis on them. And this is like a Sisyphean effort almost, because I've brought together data. No one cares about it. I've shifted into other work. I've been inspired again. So everything's coming together actually in the Exo Metaverse project, and we are rebranding that into something that's not metaverse oriented because of the connection with like Facebook or whatever as metaverse.
Oh, right.
That'll come. Well, we have a cooler name coming up, and so I look at dreams like that, and then third way is actually dreams as contact phenomena. And so this is something that's new and emergent. This is one of the reasons why I was excited to talk about dreams and hypnosis as testimony.
Yeah.
Primarily because I was asked to write a chapter of Ray Hernandez's Greater Reality book on lucid dreams as a contact modality. I did a literature review on that, discovered like, wow, it's fascinating that actually contact does seem to happen in dreams a lot. And you can like sort of if you're anywhere close to skilled at lucid dreaming, or anywhere even just interested in it, if you express the intention to have a lucid contact, it like happens at a rate that's just like astronomical compared to other lucid intent, like flying or like sleeping with beautiful people. Like if compared to that, in like I want to contact extraterrestrial civilizations in my dreams, like that the content, the actual response of the dream content, at least in the small sample sizes that are presented in the study, it shows there's an astronomical difference. We need to get to the state where we can have those experiments at a scale of hundreds of thousands of people. And then at that level, right, we've got hundreds of thousands of people practicing dream incubation that brings in perhaps actually real contact with extraterrestrials in a good way. Right, like that's really compelling evidence, and you've got 100,000 people that have participated in that study, and said, "Yeah, this is meaningful." If you do that with
100,000 of people that are inducing a sleep-like state to tap into the mind and to reach the same, like traveling in this sandbox, Like, how do you focus that many people to the same entity?
Yeah, so I mean, they in the study that I read, they invite people to just contact extraterrestrial civilization, right? So it's sort of like, which one is there? Well, whoever responds, right? And that's probably not the best protocol for us as a human family to engage in. It's probably much better protocol to specify the request to kind beings that respect our free wills, that will not do us harm, that sort of thing. And that's the insight that dream incubation, at least with lucid dream and in contact with the stranger phenomena, is like when you express intent, actually, the dreams do respond and respect that most of the time. So,
Is any of that imagination though? If you're like you are intentionally trying to, get a desired result, would you not imagine yourself seeing what you think would appear to be a positive and friendly being based on, you know, what you've seen growing up? Like, is it like how do you trust that?
so this is the question. This is the heart of the question. I think everybody needs to answer this for themselves a little bit, and I think we need a much larger dialogue about the role of imagination in contact phenomena. So as I say, as someone that's been looking at this for a long time, I go like, I don't know if it's different than imagination, but I don't actually know that imagined contact
Mm-hmm.
like is less real. And I say this through the mystery of time. Like I go like, what if we imagine these things and somehow through percolations, right? Like everyone's talking about reptilians or grays, right? Like these
Mm-hmm.
archetypal imagery, right? But it's when they start in the 60s, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
have other imagery that kind of relates to the ETs from a long time ago, but these like grays and these sort of like Ashtar command or whatever, like all these sort of imagery come up, and that feels very imaginative to the cultural situation of the 60s and 70s or 80s, right? So are they imagining it? But lo and behold, other people go ahead and have these very real experiences with these things that seem very imagined at the time and seem sort of conveniently imagined, but they swear by them. And it's like I go like, what it this is an open question. I don't know if the power of the human imagination through the mysteries of space-time as expressed through these multidimensional vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
like what if they are bringing it? What if something like that is happening? I don't know.
Well, then you have 100,000 people with different diets, different mental capabilities, mental illnesses. Maybe some might get in the way. Like there's a lot of variables. So like for me, like one of your questions that we talked about before is like how do we make this evidence? And like I faced that challenge too, because a lot of our experiencers. That's how it happens. That's where it's coming from. No one is able to take a picture. No one's able to have a video. That's just what the nuts and bolts scientists want to have, because it's something they can measure, put in their hands. And there are people that aren't crazy, and they're seeing these things and then all these other stuff. So even I can't explain definitively what is going on. All I can do is measure. So what I to answer that question that you asked, like that, just so you guys know, he asked me this question before we started, and I wanted to lead into the topic so I could answer it for him. But I'm still trying to solve it. So the only thing that I can trust with all those variables, with all those possibilities, with all those unknown constants that exist and don't exist without me divulging into the personal history, because I want to believe the experiencer. I don't want to ask if they have a mental illness, because I'm not sure if that implies that I think the mental illness is the cause of it. I don't want them thinking that, but I also curious enough to know that maybe that particular illness has nothing to do with the phenomenon. I like to also rule it out to kind of reinforce the fact that that is just a stigma. It's not that. But so the only thing I'm really comfortable with is measuring the people and their makeup and their why they are the way that they are. So eye color, something that's constant, that's universal. Blood type, we all share blood, we all have eye colors, we all have what else is there that doesn't really interchange, like, so all those markers too. Then the senses, the, what did you taste, what did you smell, what did you hear, I measure, what did you see? So, so we get into the art part of it, right? So the drawings of it is also a type of evidence, is analogical evidence. The testimony is testimonial evidence. Testimony on its own is not as good as a drawing, so analogical is better. Testimonial and a drawing is better. And then you have direct evidence, which would be a photograph or a picture or a document confirming. So there's different types of evidence. So the best would be to have, a testimony, and then you investigate, you get a drawing, and then you find a picture that looks like that. But when you measure it all, so for us, because I go through that step with each experiencer, and I categorize it. So if it happens to be a method, that's the other thing I'm measuring, is the method. How did you make contact? So sometimes it says dream. It's not just a dream. It's did you intentionally make contact, or did you unintentionally make contact? Because sometimes when you're dreaming, you have nightmares, but they're not nightmares. There might be contact experiences that are frightening. Or if you do lucid dreaming and you intentionally put that out there, then you make contact. So these are different methods. What I'm comfortable with in that respect is that different people must have different ways to connect to the same place. And once they're able, so what I can prove right now is that we can connect to whatever this is. And because we can connect to this, we're seeing a variance of different things, and it's interpreted in many different ways. So when I have more data over time, when I have more drawings and I start to see people drawing the same things, because those are visuals, right? Then we can look at where they are in the world, the time they were in the world, and then start to ask questions and correlate all that evidence together and be like, how did this person in USA in 1973 draw the exact same thing that this person saw yesterday here in Canada? I know that they don't know each other because of the way we do our research and keep them distant from each other, but do the process the same. So they're tapping into the same. This person's able to reach consciousness through meditation. This person reached consciousness through dreaming, but they both drew the same thing. So this to me would suggest that however they got there, that's a method, but they got to the same place, and that place exists. And then we can deeper dive into intent and motive and whatever. Some people talk, some people do this. So it's like a very elaborate game of guess who. Eventually one person is going to remember, doesn't see the face, but they remember the body. Another person remembers the body but doesn't see the face, but then you put them together, you got a face on the body. So there's bits and pieces of evidence. So like similar to like a crime scene investigation, when anything happens, you talk to all the witnesses, you get their statements, and then you rule it all out and you put it all together, and you actually have an understanding of what really happened. So that's the only way that makes sense to me, that you could accept that dream state as being a conduit or a point of making contact to the other side, because we know it exists. We just don't know what it is, where it is, or when it is. And that's something that we can figure out later. We don't need to know all those answers right now. Once we figure that out, then we can give that stuff to the scientists, the academics, and say, here's a bunch of data focused on this. You're a specialist on this. What do you think this is? But in the mix of all this stuff, we have these archetypical labels. Some will call it a download. So for me, my experience, download would be what I would call it. And some people will call it astral travel when they project out of, so there's different terms to describe going or receiving, transmitting the computer, the device. So dreams can be used, if the information is collected in an objective way. It is measured the same way, and it's stacked on top of different layers of evidence that's been verified and validated. But you as a single person couldn't do that alone, because then someone like me or anybody else could be like, I didn't do it, or I have to analyze it, and I project my different opinions and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. And therefore, if I'm subjective enough to, or have enough intention to lead a certain way, be biased on a certain belief, and I'm going to be looking for things to disprove or prove depending on what it is we're looking for. So the challenge we have is, how do we objectively investigate and then objectively provide opinion, and then put that out to a world that's full of opinion and speculation and emotion? You follow me?
I do follow you, and I unfortunately will say I don't know if it's possible objectively. Unfortunately, I do know it's possible at a non-dual level to engage actually means of knowledge that are meaningful to an individual and collective. But I don't think actually it can happen objectively. And one of the sort of intuitions I have around the citizen science and why it's so important is, even though we have this guise of, or like this understanding that we need some sort of objective evidence or something, or like we need an authority figure, and that perhaps we can help collect all this data right together through dreaming by inviting self-observation. The practice actually of dreaming in a citizen science way, so this is the practice of dreaming to explore the world, explore yourself, and like write it down. So through the practice of dream journaling, that is a journey you're going on as a researcher. So as opposed to necessarily, I mean, there's a couple levels of this, I think, and I think it would be really beautiful if, those researchers who are the objective scientists or the academicians participate as well. I mean, I think that's where I would.
Well, that's the challenge where they get frustrated, is they can't do their part unless we at this end give them something solid enough to work with. So if we give them data that's trusted, that's focused and narrowed in within their field of study, then they can be an expert at that time. We do need experts, just not now. We don't need it at this level. We have experts trying to measure without any data, so they can't weigh in if it hasn't been collected. So that's where the citizen part comes in, and then once we have that, we present it to them, and then do they take it seriously? Well, they must, if we do it right, and they analyze it and they check it, and they're like, hey, you're onto something. Similar to when we had a conversation, I was explaining to you how I've been doing things and how I'm always blah blah blah, and I explained to you my process, and it was you who told me that you would consider me to be a citizen scientist based on the methods and the approach that I've done. But I mean, that's because it was relatable. I'm now learning now that you are a citizen scientist yourself, but I didn't know that at the time we were having that conversation. So there's that association, that group part of layers. So once we understand all the moving parts in it, we could, at this level, collect the information, firm the data up with a common goal, as we talked about in that meeting too, about possibly us assisting you and your team regulating all of the investigative cases that come in from all over the world, setting that regulated standard with our ultraspectrum. So that's something huge we were talking about. We don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does happen, that would really, really help solve this problem, because everyone can just give the information the way that they know, and we can work together and regulate it. And then, what we have to do moving forward is get like you mentioned, Ray Hernandez, get a bunch of our experts to weigh in on this data, who trust us that we've provided them the data, and then they carry that with us. So with them. So we don't necessarily need to appease every academic. We just need one, and one in the field that trusts in the work and understands that we're doing what everything else needs to be done before they look at it under the on the microscope. Because the scientists don't go out and get the sample and do all that other stuff. Like in the forensic world, we collect the sample, they bring it to they call the CSI in, they get the sample, they do their test, and then they give it back to us, and then we do the report based on them. So it's a similar way. We don't have a team like that in this pseudoscience. at least that I'm aware of, and or at least maybe we haven't had any police-related regulated system, which is what I'm trying to create. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that system arise. In one of the questions I have are like the knowing how, with my experience with dreams and working with other people collecting the dreams and things like that. The understanding I have is there's something like the observer principle happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, in terms of me working with hypnosis people who have missing time and want to understand these things, I have to say I'm like, the stuff we're generating isn't necessarily evidence, and it's like an imaginal experience, and it could be meaningful. And by the way, it's a participatory experience. So I'm very clear that when I work with someone in a hypnosis way, it's something like I'm on a journey too, and we're doing something together. And so in that way, I see that the actual invitation to collect dreams or work with them or observe them and the reason why I'm focusing on this is because there is something like an observer phenomenon happening that does impact the quality of observation is the observer. And I suspect actually like at the macrocosmic daily level, so in daytime experience, even in the UFO phenomena or something like a consciously remembered daytime UFO sighting or whatever, there may actually be something like the observer phenomena working itself through any aspect of the system. And I don't know how to handle that except for inviting the participant or the experiencer to investigate their experience themselves and then share that in a sort of dialogue that may or may not look objective.
Well, that's where the regulation comes in. So we just have to develop a system. We believe that we've created, as I explained to you, like a system that's better than the ones that I've used in my history of things. But the question is whether, like you said, like that would be valuable for you. Is it valuable for the next person and the other person? Like, how do we get everybody on the same page? So we have to amalgamate. We have to work together because, Free and Ray Hernandez, they rebrand a new name too. I can't remember what that is.
CCRI.
Yeah, CCRI, right. So I mean, they measure the same thing, but they have different protocols that they consider to be significant, but they're measuring a specific hypothesis. So we kind of have to go to a group and a route, and then give that data out to all of the experts, and then come back together with the findings. We kind of have to do this thing. Okay, so we got to hit commercial. So that's why I'm kind of looking kind of sideways because I got two screens kind of split here. But anyway, so we're going to pause, but we will continue after a message from our professional partners. Also, if you are listening to this live on KPNL Radio or a future podcast, head over to youtube.com/The Experiencers Support Association to see the video that goes with this audio. Remember that you're listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencers Support Association.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful. Get away from me! I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that we're alone in the universe.
My mission is to assist and help those experiencing this phenomenon in such a way that they're able to continue and live with it, and also in a way that it can be measured, quantified, and reinforced within today's society, so that way it can be accepted and no longer viewed in a negative way. One thing that I do value in people is the ability to sense and feel when something is right and when something is wrong. That is a natural ability that we all share. Now, when we combine that with the paranormal and ufological abductions or visits, I have this sensation that these abilities are connected. Not everyone can sense, not everyone can feel. However, those who can are typically connected with something that we cannot explain. And part of my research is not just to investigate the experience, but it's also to understand and study the experiencer to find out what they have in common with other experiencers, to try to figure out what the actual makeup is in order to be on that spectrum. There's a lot of it happening all over the world, and I do not know of any other study that is focusing on the individuals as people, only the phenomenon. Welcome back. You are listening to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. If you're enjoying this episode so far, please consider becoming a member of our channel and send us a super chat. Your membership will get you bonus content, like exclusive videos, and it will help us reach our goal of launching our training center, which is Interstellar, the Academy of Ufology and Paranormal Studies. Also, if you have experienced an unexplained event involving the paranormal, UFOs, extraterrestrials, dogman, or any other paracryptid, head over to tessacan.org/reporting system. We also do take reports on dreams and astral travel. Angela, I got like 100 from you, which is good. It's all that data there. So we do take those cases as well, out of body experiences, things like that too. So just remember that the more reports we get, the more we will understand this phenomenon and how it affects our people. Let the others who have already reported be that example that proves we are making a difference. And if it wasn't for those reports, we would not be able to do what we do. And for that, we thank you. I'm still here with Daniel Rekshan. Rekshan. All right. Let me get my screen back here. And before, I didn't want to cut it off. I want to make sure, but I was kind of leading into, I guess, talking about our ultra spectrum. So our perspective is evidence. So we're focused on making sure that we have the best evidence. So we work with the experiencer to take their experience, as flawed as it is, as wild as it may be, break it all down, remove the speculation, make sure we get all the information, rule out all those other things, and see what we're left with. And then once we're left with it, then we kind of repackage it. And then we've created the ultra spectrum classification system in which we're reclassifying this new information without using these archetypical labels. And then once we repackage it and we have this new set of data, which will be in the ultra spectrum report, the goal from then is to present it to professionals like yourself or Ray Hernandez, since we mentioned him a few times, so that way people like them could actually have proper data to do the proper work, in which they've been trying to do, once it's been repackaged, if that makes sense, which makes your job easier because you're focusing on good data, not just weeding all that other stuff out. So that's what we do. We repackage it, we weed it all out, and then we give it to you. You provide your assessment on it, we take it back, and then we put an objective kind of like, this is a matter of fact, this is what the results say, this is an opinion of this, opinion of that, opinion of this, and this is what it is. So kind of working in that team effort. So my question to you, if we were to repackage something and then present it to you, what is your ideal experiencer to work with that would allow you to do your hypnosis or your dream therapy, if I'm saying that right, or like your dream work? Like what's the ideal candidate for you to help?
Yeah, so the ideal person I work with is kind of a unique person insofar that they are willing to go on a journey within themselves, willing to not actually use the experience to gain evidence, but have a deeper generally, the purpose I align to is an embodiment of peace, love, or unity consciousness. So it's like, are you going to be a better person, more integrated, more grounded in your body? And so if you can do that work, which may involve going in, reliving some interesting or difficult or challenging or frightening memories, and then coming to a state of integration where you may or may not know what happened, you may or may not have external validation, but at least you're internally consistent and integrated. That's my ideal situation, actually, primarily because it works really well with my life, my alignments. I mean,
so it's more of a healing, a therapeutic. That's why I said therapy when I meant dream therapy, because I see it as an aid. At the same time you're studying and trying to understand what is happening, but you recognize the disconfiguration, you recognize the stress and the anxiety, and you're just trying to repackage the emotion, right?
Yes, yeah. And this is not to say I'm not interested in the evidence or anything like that. I'm very interested in collecting a bunch of dreams and experiences together and doing algorithmic analysis, right? Quantitative analysis that's reproducible on the dream contents or the contents of these hypnotic sessions and things like that. I also do, actually, I don't want to misrepresent, but my primary focus is that healing experience, because I find unless that motivation to heal or be present and to expand into love and connection with people around you, human beings right here and now around you, it's not going to work very well. It's going to be challenging. There's not enough gas to go through the barriers that are really actually difficult to go through. At least I find, without that deeper motivation of being willing to go through that pain or challenge, to actually be present with yourself in a deeper way so that you can relate to your body, to the earth, to your friends and family in a more loving way. Unless that's there, I don't see it. It doesn't work for me. But after that, right, like the investigation of, I do work with a few people to do like sort of internal explorations. People who have worked through a lot of that and are very integrated enough to say, like, I'm open to and willing to explore. And that actually is where I would love to be, is sort of like cutting edge exploration of like using dreams, using hypnosis to really just explore what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, it's like thinking about like the Project Stargate from CIA, right? Like they do remote viewing. That's all hypnosis. That's basically hypnosis, right? Like we can do that sort of stuff with people who are prepped, right? So that's really fascinating to me. But in terms of where we're at as a society, like the bulk of people around me need not to explore that edge, but need to explore where they've already contacted that edge and feel more at peace with it. Yeah.
Okay, like balancing everything. Okay. So I was leading into my next question, which is, what is quantum healing? That's the third group that you or I guess term that you've mentioned in your bio. We've covered the first two. So what's quantum healing, and how does that fit in with all of this?
Yeah, quantum healing is a rather not strange methodology, but one that I've had. The use of the word quantum outside of quantum physics had like really made me feel weird about it, and made me feel it was a pseudoscience, made me feel it was new age BS repackaged or something. Quantum this, quantum that, right? But I got into that primarily because when I started, after I said the prayer to be of service to others, I started working with people with contact in a much deeper way and needed a deeper tool to work with. And quantum healing comes from the work of Dolores Cannon, who was a hypnotist. She's one of the sources of the starseed understanding. She wrote a number of books, a lot of strange stuff, like talking to Nostradamus, like talking to, I don't know, Mary Magdalene, something like that, through her hypnotic clients. Discovering that, it's like UFO abduction regressions and things like that. And the methodology she put forward brings people into, she called it a somnambulistic state, which is like sleepwalker. It's really, I find that to be a challenging word. There's like a lot of challenge in sort of me accepting this methodology. And part of that was because I was coming from an academic point of view, right? Like I wanted a reference to an academia that worked, and this really sort of jumps off and it's like, let's work with people in there and to gain that insight, to heal, to provide a sense of healing. The quantum healing comes beyond quantum healing, comes out of the quantum healing hypnosis technique, which was put forth by Dolores Cannon. Beyond quantum healing is a methodology put forth by Candace Goldman, who basically says you can do QHHT online with people, and that's fine. Just call it BQH, right? So that's really where it comes from. It's a recent methodology, and part of the work there is very similar actually to the depth hypnosis work I had been doing. It's just packaged differently, but there's one or two things that are different. One is accessing what we call the quantum state, which is like, I don't know actually how to describe it. I feel sometimes silly in terms of talking about the quantum state in a rigorous discussion, but experientially it is something very real that has impact. I've experienced it in my own life, and I see it in the life of people I work with, and that is going into a state of consciousness where things are and are not. Like you're connected in this sort of magical way. You can get information, you can make requests. Strange things happen because of the requests that arise. And it does have a kind of atmosphere of the high strangeness that can be associated with it. The experience of quantum healing is really like a 4-hour conversation involving setting up an intention, going through relaxation exercises, experiencing what we sometimes call regression, but now we're calling it something else. Or it's like if you wanted to figure out, were you from Andromeda in a past life, or like what happened in those 5 minutes you can't remember when you saw the UFO, right? You go into that and you use the hypnosis techniques to support that. And then the healing part of that is really focusing on the integration and inviting spiritual, mental, and emotional or psychological healing that generally do have some sort of kind of quantum effect on the body that is really unexplainable, and you can't really call it like physical healing, just because like you're not doctors, we're not like psychologists that can practice with people. So it is coming through the guise of spiritual or like emotional release, that sort of thing.
So. It's kind of interesting. A thought came to my mind too with these pseudosciences. Like there's a lot of things under this pseudoscience kind of category in terms of not normal science and whatnot. But there is a lot of us doing this work that don't require all these certificates and stuff like that. It's all these methods that we learned in these schools and stuff that branch from like other things like psychology and whatnot. But yet, so a lot of people are willing to trust us to like do this type of mind work, to unlock parts of their brains and feel better and to heal and to have therapy. But yet some people avoid going to an actual clinical psychologist or a doctor and say, I've seen these things, because they're not allowed to, I guess, like, encourage that. But yet you would think, the thought that came in my mind, like the reason why I'm prefacing like that is that I'm surprised that they haven't outlawed it to make it illegal for us to be able to offer this type of service to the mind and encourage. Like even the academic, they ignore it. It's taboo, but they're not. They're not advocating. They're not fighting it. They're not like trying to shut it down. So they're kind of allowing it. So that just the thought just kind of came to me. So I'm interested to know what you think about that.
Yeah, there is a sense of allowance. I mean, the where I end up seeing this going is more towards working under like a ministry, kind of like the religious organization I do have. I'm like ordained in the Universal Life Church as a sort of support for this.
Timmy's that as well.
Yeah, so it really is actually spiritual in some way that needs to be represented. I mean, I feel like talking about the clinical psychologists and things like that, is anything that is literally regulated by the government right now is set on train tracks that were laid by the military, industrial, big pharma sort of thing. They do not do work that serves humanity. They do not do work that is effective in healing. And I feel very, very strongly about this from talking to people, from looking at data, from seeing how psychologists often will they want to make money, or they want to be compliant, right? And so compliance is another way of making money for the government or big pharma, and really that has no business in.
Well, that's why they push those labels for mental illness. That's why they push those medications and things like that too. It's really hard. So I was just kind of leading towards a whole that maybe they're just allowing us to do it because they know they need it, or they're waiting for someone like you to solve it, and then all those liabilities are gone. It's kind of like, it's like, I don't know. I know it's happening, but I don't want to know about it. And just let me know what happens. And so with that, I mean, how do we take on the world? How do we get this to everybody? How do we heal?
Yeah,
that's
a good question.
Like, I mean, there's a lot of people doing this. There's light workers, a lot of people trying, but I mean, even that needs to be regulated, right? We don't necessarily need to be regulated by the government. That means that's a control, but we should have an alliance, some sort of a, that's another reason why I created the Experiencer Support Association. I'm just kind of speaking towards what we're looking for is to formulate that global system, at least within our own standards, where we could formulate our own regulated and goals to take care of the world, heed the world, or are you prepared to take on the entire world, or are you just focused on your little camp where you are?
There's two answers to that question. One is from a point of view of like a mysticism, right? As above, so below, as within, so without, right? So I see myself actually, and I would actually, because of my observations of like, remember earlier I was talking about like, I'm not actually sure that imagination is limited to a person, like the effect around of a person. I like the imagination actually might be creating vast ET civilizations that are visiting us. Like human imagination might actually be doing that. I don't know, but there's enough strangeness in the phenomena that says that, and also strangeness in terms of the synchronicity of my own life and my own experience going in, doing the work of healing. The world actually feels different, feels changed, feels better. Right? I don't like it. It feels less less dark, right? Like it was simultaneous, and I'm not sure if it's like we're both taking, like the world and me are taking steps along the same way, and I go, wow, that like dark Men in Black sort of situation is no longer here. Is that because I'm less afraid of my own nightmares, or is it because am I less afraid of my own nightmares because they're not there? I'm not quite sure. Mm-hmm. But in any case, I would say it's worth it to do the inner work, seeing that as a representation of the outer world. Mm-hmm. The second level of answer is I say, yeah, we need to step up. We need to see that our institutions are run by agendas that are not in alignment with our highest good. We need to see that if the person we seek for assistance and guidance in this sort of stuff is looking to the diagnostic standard manual, that's the wrong thing. This is not the right way forward, and we need to step up as a community, and that is a person to person thing. This is every time someone says something like, oh my God, like I saw this UFO, you won't believe it, it's crazy. Go like, it's not crazy, this stuff happens, let's talk about it. And let's have a dialogue about the role of imagination, the role of this, the role of that. And I love this conversation we've had in terms of evidence and imagination, right? It's okay to talk about that. It's okay for you to go hey.
It's also when. So that's another thing I wanted to kind of focus in on is in my world, I wouldn't use you until the end. So if I were to investigate, if you were to refer someone to me after you've already done your work, it'd be very, very hard for me to work with them, to have them accept possible real scenarios. So I can kind of got to work through all that stuff while they're in that state where they're willing to accept both sides, and we rule it all out, and then we're stuck with something that we don't really understand. I have my opinions on it, but I don't tell them that. Then I make the referral. You do your thing. We have a conversation, and then I let you know at that time what matches. I add that to the report, and then we talk to the experiencer together. So that kind of team effort thing too. Now, if you happen to get through your studies or your methods, happen to get similar answers or further in-depth information, that gets added to the report and reinforces that. But it also validates the credibility of the experiencer because you're a third party, you have different methods, you have a different approach, you weren't involved in my investigation. Right, you're like an expert, expert testimony as well to provide your own assessment on that, and then I would kind of, decide whether or not, your assessment is proper enough too. So what we don't have is a lot of that next level. That's what we need. We have a good system where we can collect the data. We have lots of people that need help, but that we just don't have enough resources or enough people to refer them to. So with that kind of method. Would that hinder the way that you do things? Do you like that approach? Do you need it to be the other way around? Like, would that make it harder? Would that make it easier? Is that something that interests you?
Oh, it would make it tremendously easier to work with someone elucidating the story. Oftentimes in terms of my consultation, and this actually is healing work. The sharing of the story is healing work. So it's one and the same. It's sort of like in my consultations now I go, you can just speak for 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes about the story. I know it's important to be heard, right? Like that. I know this is healing and important. So this is a thing I love doing. I love hearing people's story. And then I invite them to share that story. But I'm just writing notes down very quickly. It's not about what the ETs look like. It's not about the phenomena. Oftentimes I'll be like UFO, -mother, psychic question mark, whatever.
Just like you don't want to lead them, I don't want to lead you. So it's just more so like, okay, I have everything I need. You do your assessment. Let's have a conversation together, and then we try to figure out what's going on. And then for the experiencer's sake, we then put them on the next level. The third level would be like, how, these are things or people, these are groups and these are associations in which you can be a part of. Here's some communities, here's some like this world could exist if we work together, because we don't need, that's citizen, if not citizen science, citizen therapy. Is that a thing? Citizen, you get where I'm going. That whole system can work. We have a lot of people that do all these things. There's just not a lot of people are working together.
Yeah, and that's something, with the Exo Metaverse project we're looking at doing, is bringing together networks and things like that in terms of offering software tools and like web tools, right? So this is like configuration of a global open data commons search index, right? To share all the data. How do we share the data across the network? Well, it'd be really easy to just use like how tech companies share data, right? Like how great would that be, right? So it's like how do we connect experiencers with practitioners? Well, we need directories, right? That sort of thing. And so
but you need to regulate, you need to have background checks, you need to have credentials, you need to have all these things in place. Right. So we're your resource. We could figure all that stuff out for you. We got that in the bag. What we don't have is this side, your side. We need more of that. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for doing that and helping the people that you have helped, and that you'll continue to help.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I do it, is literally everyone holds a piece of a puzzle, right? And the thing that I would I see as most effective now is like a practice of letting go. Like personally, I have to let go of my attachments to like my own personal vision around it and go like, how can we actually work together? Because this is more important than any single vision, right? Yeah. And the other reason why I like am so passionate about the ET contact hypnosis work is around the people do go, I have a mission, I have a reason. They contacted me for something. I have this piece of the puzzle. They literally say that under trance. I have this piece of the puzzle. People will spout out like equations and stuff like that. They'll be like, I see how these things work, bits of technology. Sometimes it'll be like, I need to tell this person something at this time. Like there's all this sort of pieces of the puzzle that have been split apart, and us coming into coherence with ourselves first, so we understand what that mission or puzzle piece is, and then working with others and going, I care more about working with others and bringing this forward in that way than any other aspect of that project is very like an important step to take. And it's a hard step, but I think it's necessary, and I think that's where, unless there's like this deeper motivation of finding the answers, healing insight or transformation is generally what I say moves things forward. And the insight here, right? Like you're after insight. You're after insight that leads to, I say it's going to lead to healing and transformation, but that sort of answer, right? The evidence to the answer provides insight. And that's actually a worthy mission. And in terms of the understanding of, to bring it back to dreams once again, is like life as a dream, right? So the thing that we find in terms of why dream work is effective in terms of healing mental illness is because it provides insight. And insight and lucid dreaming particularly is the practice of identifying and elucidating insight from dreams that are confusing. We need to do that at a global level, at a societal level, is find this insight. And we'll
so global is huge. It's like, that's huge, but you can still do that in small doses. Yes. So the other thing too is, once you have that, with us measuring the experiencer and understanding what genetic makeup or what parameters, male, female, age and all this other stuff, what makes those numbers to be the ideal person to make contact. Once I get enough of those people, we plan to put them all in the same room and then make contact. So the thing that would be definitive for everybody in the entire world is one person to make contact and actually be able to display that and have that evidence, indisputable. And so for me, in terms of science goes, the way that I could at least trust it for myself, to see it, to know that it exists, because I don't know that. I know enough about it to know I'm in this right path, but I don't know anywhere enough to know if I'm wrong. So like I need to do this experimental part. But with our data, our science, from there, my hypothesis is if I have 100 of the same people that fit this criteria, if it's possible to make contact, whether I believe them or not, have them all in the same room doing the same methods that we know about, and something happens, that's science, that's proof, that's evidence, and I have all the data, circumstantial, hearsay, testimony, all those lines of evidence already beforehand, and then we make contact. The problem and then that would be things. I'd have to, then the men in black might show up and be like, Eureka, this guy figured it out, let's take him out. But we have all those elements, and we have people that are just make the contact. And because they're able to make the contact, they can't explain it, they can't build a case, they can't do that, they don't understand it. That's why we're not getting disclosure, because it's like the Tower of Babel. We're not working together. And so with that, I mean, I would send 100 people to you and have you do dream therapy on them, and then we would do another study on how the group that I selected and works with the group, your work, and then we have the studies and studies and studies and studies. But now we're in that citizen science ring. We're not on TV. We're not in mainstream media. No one will touch it. Does that matter? Do we need to be on national television for this, or is it just doing it for the sake in this way for 10 people or even 100 people good enough for you? Like,
personally, I think it's person to person. So yeah. I think it's a flow like that. One of the other things in terms of the one of the goals I hold is that the Maharishi effect sort of thing, right? Like some percentage of us actually just need to meditate, mm-hmm. for the effects to be felt. So that's the sort of initial goal, and that feels really reachable actually. So is to have that some percent of a city, first do it, some percent of a region, right? How wonderful would that be? Then the region starts feeling elevated or connected, and then it goes from there. And I think we're really actually much closer than we would imagine. That's just that's just like
that's where your giant database of taking all the information and putting it together, so that way we can generate these hotspots. Like we're doing it in a certain way, other people's are doing it in a certain way. We need to put all the studies together, and so that way those plots are specific and measuring to do that, and then bring everybody together to do that. So tapping into your psychological studies, put on the psychology hat for a little bit. How do we convince these people that have been doing it a certain way for so long to change or to band or to work together and do what they're already doing, but together? How do we convince these people to change?
It's a really good question, and that's something that's been on my mind a lot, primarily because of the challenge around like UFOlogy, right? Like the nuts and bolts people versus the other people versus the secret space. Like there's factions within these the world, right? It's divided. People are attached to their own notion as to what is happening, right? And it is they respond at a level that is it's like a psychological triggering, right? So we go, hey, why don't we experiment with this? Maybe I think, maybe your gray alien encounter, maybe my gray alien encounter when I was 4 was actually literally just a dream based on Sesame Street, right? If I'm attached to the notion of being a contactee, and you're saying that to me, I go, oh, no, you're threatening my identity, right? So mm-hmm. one of the issues, there's a couple issues here. One of the major issues is assuming the identity of a contactee or an experiencer is an ordeal that brings you out of the mainstream and into another group. And that actually is a very strong journey to go on. Having gone through that, and you're now an experiencer identified as that, you're bonded with the people that have helped you through that. And it actually feels somewhat not cult-like, but it uses similar mechanisms of that separation and acceptance dynamic, and that needs to be blown away. We need to like work at a plurality of understanding of the universe and ourselves in it and a worldview, and the internet's actually really helping with that, and learning how to dialogue with other cultures is very in other cultures and other perspectives. We're in a terrible time right now politically around that. Like we need gentleness, and we need to practice civility in our political dialogue, because unless we do that, we can't have civility in our dialogue about things that actually matter.
Yeah.
So like we need to practice that across the board, and I don't know how to inspire that.
Well, no, we start. We know what to do. We've already started doing it. That's what I'm kind of hinting at. This is like a, like is we've already started it. We need people like you to to research and then see if we can start it. Because for me, what I've learned with my experience is when I first started this with this idea, no one took us seriously. And then now that I put some data out and I released some documents and done all these other stuff, these people that ignore me all of a sudden want to be my friends and all this other stuff. And we just have to do it. And if we show when the right person acknowledges what we're doing and it resonates with what they need, the right person will come and that team will build organically. So we know what needs to be done. The goal globally can still be obtained, but it's not going to happen tomorrow, but we still have to start. So there's an expression, like, I went to, I forget what his name is, but there's a book, it's called Start Ugly, and the whole message there is you just start. And then if we were to go back to when I first started, we didn't even have these little graphics here on this thing. And I was like, I didn't even have clothes on half the time. It was really ugly visually. Right. So but, I start to design my background, brand a little bit, so you just got to start. Yeah. So we can achieve this. And I could use your help, and I know we're live, but I'm just, it's just saying, it just got to start, and I think we could really make a difference for one person. And then if we make a difference for one, they'll tell someone else, and then they'll make a difference for another. I mean, we got, people watching us too. So don't think it's impossible. I'm just kind of picking your brain a little bit to see if you understand what's needed, and you know what's needed. You want to do it. You have the drive. We had a conversation before, and now the tables have turned, right? Like, I kind of have the advantage because I knew you ahead of time, but everything happens for a reason. Synchronicity. Think about that. We're having a conversation. You wanted to ask me a question because you knew, now here we are, round table at the end of it. What do we do with it? So I'll just let you sit on that. So I don't want you to say anything live, but the thing that's been bothering me, or actually making me curious this whole time, and I wanted to wait until the very end, is I want to know everything about what you got on your wall behind you. Like all that stuff that I'm seeing. I'm curious to know, like, so you're an artist, so I'm assuming you drew all these, most of them.
I did.
Yeah. So can you can see your screen, you can see your background. Yeah. Maybe pick one and start there and explain to me, what brought you to that. Are these maybe these are some of your visions, some of your experiences?
Yeah, so I put this on my wall because I felt I needed my diplomas and certificates to show I'm credentialed in the work I'm doing. And then I was like, I'll add the rest, some art that I've had that's representative of my journey, particularly around dreams and hypnosis and contact. So this here is a sacred geometric figure. It's called a Merkaba, which is related to these phenomena. But and the Asclepion was the name of a studio art gallery I ran in Oakland, California, when I was going to grad school. So that hung out on the street, and I painted it to sort of attract people in. I had art displayed. We sold crystals and other beautiful things, and then ran meditation and sound meditation events and dream work and stuff. It was a beautiful experience. Here is a watercolor painting I did of Mount Rainier, communing to my job as data mapper in Seattle. Here I've got this little book. This is actually the second download from a kind of telepathic communion experience I had with a cuttlefish, which was just a different story. I went to an aquarium. I was like, wow, cuttlefish, they're alien intelligence. I want to commune with it, see what it's like to open up to it. And then afterwards, I told everyone I had a telepathic communion with a cuttlefish. But I think it was a sort of skipping of consciousness or some projection thing. But Alchemist's dream is now achieved. All sorts of written text and these strange imagery. I have 5 books like this, all about metaphysical things. This calls for a mass meditation about transmuting the pollution in the world into beauty or whatever. Those ones up here, similar. That comes from a book called Prophecies for New Babylon. So it's you can access that on my Goodreads profile. I don't know. I'll eventually put links on somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. Anything that?
No, you're going. You keep going.
Yeah. This is from this. I call that the waiting room. That's in terms of astral projection work. There's this realm between realms or whatever. So that was kind of an expression of that. It has 3 people sitting there. It's past, present, future. They're sending out these butterfly creatures, which represent the dreaming soul to me. It's got some light language glyph type stuff here, and then 2 masks that represent. One represents Apollo, the other represents Dionysus, and I made those to put on my own face and have an experience with, and see what it was like to embody those different archetypes. Yeah. And
then beneath that, the last one there, and the
this is the logo for Dreamwell, the new app I have. I'm launching. I've launched. It's at dreamwellbewell.com. You can get dream meditations for free, dream journal, and then under here, that's the Exo Metaverse logo. Yeah. And then here is NORD, which stands for Non-Ordinary Reality Database. That was so I had the series of downloads with these books, and then the next download was for a dream database. This is in Science Platform. This was the first expression of that non-ordinary reality database. It's no longer active and is becoming the bones, basically, of the platform we're bringing live.
So everything you got there is just all you, just different stages of you. That's just putting you together in that. And I kind of I like it. I really so this light language in the back, which is interesting because it's very hard for me to see, but I could kind of see kind of the symbols because I've seen something like that before.
Yep.
Did you write that from an experience?
I'll just pull it down so you can see it better.
Yeah.
And so this actually is art. This isn't light language. It might be light language. It might be art. I don't know. We don't know. So what happened was in 2012, I went to some sort of plant medicine ceremony, and then for the next year, I doodled, and I still doodle it sometimes, glyph geometric. It was intense. It was actually pretty intense, and that was a release. And then that work, I was like, what is this? Does it mean anything? I tried translating, figuring out translations or patterns, and it's more or less just scribbles. There's nothing really.
But when you're creative, when you're art, the reason why I'm leading into the consciousness within you is the art. You're tapping into that space, and you are either imagining a combination, or you're downloading, or you're drawing something that makes sense to all of these things going on. So it's art to you, it's art to some, but that creative element how much is that imaginary? Like some of it can't all be imagination. It's got to come from somewhere. If you've never seen that before, why would you imagine that? And like, so there's a lot of, it's where that idea came from too, where I like regression hypnotherapy. You can kind of go back to the first thought of like when you learn that word or you learn that term to kind of determine whether or not it's influencing your thoughts now. I mean, I like when the experiencers draw. I have them, I have them do that as part of the release. Making the report is a release, and then doing the drawing work. Some can draw, some cannot. But I mean, even if they can't, it's those little details. So all those little characters on that language, you're pulling from your mind. You're pulling from memory. You're pulling some are just patterns to what makes sense, what feels right, what feels good. But maybe it is a language. Maybe it is something, and then you just got to show that to someone that could read it. Maybe the message isn't for you; it's for someone else.
Yeah, I'm actually engaged in a study of Dr. John Dee and the Enochian language, if you've ever heard of it, right? And so there in that actually there are hidden geometries that imply like fourth dimensions and like all sorts of stuff. And that really does have a sort of a rigor to it that is next level and is fascinating.
And it's ancient. So we go back into all this. Our ancients, our ancestors back in Sumeria and Anunnaki, all that stuff. They knew about all this stuff. We're just tapping into it now like it's trendy. No, it's been there all along. Do you remember the map that I showed you at the meeting?
I don't remind me.
Map? Okay, well, I don't really have it queued up here, but I mean, so that to me was just art coming out. That was an expression. I might have it here. Just give me a second. Yeah, I do actually. Just and I mean, I do a lot of talking about what we're doing here on this too. But like I say to everybody, we all know this is conversation. We're meeting each other for the first time, we're learning. You guys, we're bouncing ideas together, but I always like to bring it up at the appropriate time because I'm trying to understand. I never showed you guys this map when I was like unloading to you guys how my crazy ideas.
This feels familiar, but tell me about it.
Well, no, it's just similar. This is art for me. I can't draw, but I was able to do this, and this came through a download, and everything else that I do, comes from reflection on all that other stuff too. And these are symbols and signs that represent certain things that I know about. But at the time that it came through, I don't remember doing it. I just remember starting. I remember ending it. And then I've been spending the last 3 years trying to understand what it means. But collectively, we think these are cherished. We think these are, all the philosophies and things like that is to bring people together. And what I was trying to allude to is I believe that this map is not meant for me. It's meant for someone else. Just like the light work, the language you have on your wall, maybe it doesn't make sense to you, but if you show that to someone, it might make sense to them. And that's why I just thought, it's kind of like a wanted photo. Have you seen this? I don't feel like it belongs to me. I just feel like the information was given to me and I obsessed about it until I got it out through art. So like when you get an idea and you get creative, you got to draw it out and then you feel better. You feel it's therapeutic. It's released. But then what do you do with it?
I just, you're talking about this, like thinking about how to share those things. Is thinking about like that TikTok algorithm, right? Like how they show things to people is like it's just riffing on that idea. It's because I follow a lot of like light code stuff on Facebook, and people are like, does this mean anything to you? Does this mean anything to you? So if there's a better way to share that, I envision something like an Instagram TikTok for I guess channeled messages, something like that would be amazing.
Like a database, a photo database. We have that too that we could use if we collected enough data. Just got to get people reporting and doing the work and working through everything. I mean, you're a computer guy, you're a software guy, you make apps. I mean, I'm pretty sure we could. There's lots of things we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all on the same path. So let's use the last 5 minutes for you to tell everybody where they can follow you, where they can learn more. I mean, you got many different projects on the go. You have many different groups that you work with. I mean, feel free to, but how do they find you? If they want to get in contact with you and your work.
Yeah, the best place to find me, is through cosmicdreamhypnosis.com. That's my hypnosis and dream practice. That has a lot of information about how I work with people, particularly. That also has a way to do a free consultation. So that's schedule time with me. That's a really good way to get in contact with me. My email, daniel@cosmicdreamhypnosis.com, is there too. The website, Exo Metaverse, is a good way to get contact with citizen science efforts and things like that. So if you're interested in that, there's ways to engage there. And then, the app, if you're curious about what it's like to do hypnosis or dreams or anything like that, is a really good way to engage. And you can find that on the app stores, Android and iOS. Just search for Dreamwell, or go to the website dreamwellbewell.com. And then again, my email, daniel@cosmicdreamhypnosis.com, is a really good way just to reach out. And I love talking to people about this stuff. So that's why I offer a free consultation. Is actually, people are like, don't do that because it's like your time's valuable, that sort of thing. But I just love it. That's why I'm doing it.
It's a nice way to introduce someone to the service who might be uncomfortable, unsure. Money is a thing. Like, I mean, some people can't afford it. And there's that return value too, that the next sale too. You can always get them on the next one. So if you do well, then they might tip you, or they might do something like that. So it's not really a bad idea. I do consultations for free with security.
Yeah.
But you do them well enough that they'll need you, and then.
Yeah.
So
speaking of that, my cosmic dream hypnosis practice, actually, I do by donation. I model it after priesthood or ministry. It's not, because it's not a business, right? It's not a business. This is like a highest spiritual service I have to offer, and in that way, it is offered by donation, and it is asked for after the service is rendered. So the donation is simply a link I send you, and you just decide what you want. I tell you the market rate.
It's pay what you can or pay what you want kind of type model.
Exactly.
I use that model too. We use that model in many different ways, because like how do you put a price on something when you can't guarantee results, you can't guarantee whether every single person's going to like it the same way. But then it allows you just to be you, to be free to do it in your way.
Yeah.
And if they don't like it, well, you know what? At least that's just what it is. You don't have to deal with a refund. You don't have to deal with a complaint or anything silly like that. But then at the same time, someone might be like, you know what? I value this at like $50 for an example. And then at the end of it, you know what? That wasn't too bad, but I still feel like I should pay for his time. So here's $20. Or the other way around is like, that was amazing. I'm going to give this guy $100. So or you get the other person around to be like, you know what, this was amazing. This was great. I don't have any money, but I'm going to refer this to someone. I'm going to share this with my neighbor. I'm going to give him, so like that philosophy, whoever's telling you it's a bad idea is looking for money. Stay away. Right. You get what I'm saying? It's not a bad model. Because you want that return customer. We want that return experiencer. That's why when people make that report, we do all this stuff at the beginning, because we want them to watch the show. We want them to come back. We want them to be engaging. But how do we convince them that we know what we're doing, or we know what we're talking about, and how do we trust them? Yeah. We got to give them a little bit, right? Yep. So no, don't. You're doing good. So thank you for doing that on behalf of like all the experiencers that could use that service. Go to like Chantel, you've been doing great on the moderation, posting his links every time he mentions those websites. I give you props because that you picked up that trick on the podcast that I did on Tuesday. So they did that. So you're learning, and I like that. I approve. That's good. And that's what it's all about, man. So I'm going to end the show unless you have any questions for me. Any questions for me?
Oh, it's been such a pleasure. Thank you. I look forward to working with you and your organization more and bringing like the reporting into the citizen science platform.
I appreciate it too. And I know, like I said, with the format, we did have a conversation before, and then we did agree at the beginning of the show that we would just kind of talk, have a little outside business talk, but kind of get a feel to see how this would work, because we didn't really understand. We knew it could work. It felt good. But this is the interview process for the team too. So like, with the comments, I'm seeing that people like you. I think I see, what did I see Tim here? Tim said, hire this guy. Look at that. Look at that. Tim's, so a lot of the comments here, a lot of people enjoying that. And that's what this is for too. So just stick around at the end if you want to have a chat. For those of you that are here, happy Halloween, because this is the Halloween special.